Coming up on the Angus Report, the progress the beef industry has made since Chuck Lambert's 1991 white paper, Lost Opportunities in Beef Production.
Agriculture lending is tightening up. How can you best prepare for your operations finances this year?
Mud can be problematic, especially this time of year. We'll share tips and tricks for managing mud.
And are you an eligible voting member for the 135th Annual Convention of Delegates at the National Angus Convention? Make sure you meet the requirements by April 6th.
This is the Angus Report. Hello and welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Clint Mefford.
Our top news this week. Chuck Lambert's 1991 white paper titled Lost Opportunities in Beef Production outlined ways the beef industry could capture more efficiencies, reduce defects, eliminate negative eating experiences, and maximize customer satisfaction. The paper shows the industry was losing $12 billion to lost opportunities. Gary Smith, a visiting professor at Texas A&M and Colorado State University, was a speaker during National Cattlemen's Beef Association Convention. He discussed the progress the beef industry made in the 27 years since Lambert's white paper and how the industry can continue to improve.
We have really capitalized. We've been able to look at the things that we were auditing in the National Beef Quality Audits and made about $426 million worth of additional profits that go to the gross revenue of the industry. And we've also made almost twice that much progress in the things that are either production related, cow-calf, from weaning really to slaughter, and also some things that we've done at the retail level that have helped us. And so all in all, the consensus of experts is we've saved an additional $1.1 billion by just simply trying to identify the things that we need to improve upon and using programs like the BQA to accomplish that. If I were in charge of producer education and merchandising our product, I would establish some sort of a program out at the cow-calf production level. And I'd have periodic meetings, first of all, of people who are involved in it, out in the industry and farms and ranches, plus the people who are constantly working on reproductive physiology, the veterinarians who are working on BRD, the old shipping fever. So we need to set some metrics out there and periodically have meetings where we share information. How can we get better at this? And then we need a third set of metrics for retail. So I think we need to take a three-pronged attack rather than just that single middle National Beef Quality Audit metrics.
Agricultural banking and lending face unique challenges this year. Commodity prices and industry uncertainty put a strain on agricultural lenders. Ed Elfman, Senior Vice President, Agricultural and Rural Banking Policy at American Bankers Association, offers his advice for farmers and ranchers interacting with their lenders this year.
You have to realize going into your lender that it's going to be a little more conservative. Biggest thing you should expect as a borrower coming in is have your business plan laid out. How are you going to make it through the next couple of years? What happens if you have 500 head of cows and the prices have gone down in the beef market? It's a constant just being aware of what's coming down the pike and having that plan set up. And then the other thing, too, to work better with your bank going into this upcoming lending season, communication. Talk to your banker. Don't show up last minute and say, hey, I want to do this, having never had a conversation. Make sure that they're aware of what you're trying to do. If you want to build a new feeding facility, talk to your banker about it. Is it the right move? Is it what we should be doing? Does it cash flow over the next few years? Have those conversations. Successful customers make successful banks.
A Senate regulatory relief bill and a 2018 Farm Bill have the potential to greatly impact the agricultural industry's financial landscape. Of course, we'll keep you updated as those pieces of legislation move through Congress.
Mud presents a lot of challenges for many feedlot managers. There are several management practices you can implement now to prevent muddy conditions. Dr. Dan Loy, Iowa Beef Center Director, urges feedlot managers to think about mud now. He also shares tips to control a muddy environment if it does become a problem in your operation this spring.
Mud is probably the largest environmental challenge in feedlots in Iowa. And at this time of year is when we have those challenges. hopefully the producers have time to do some management practices prior to the conditions that lead to mud now. In other words, snow removal, managing the pen surface so that water can leave the feedlot, run off the feedlot, and not retain there and create mud. Those are the best practices, is to get ahead of it, before we really get into where the conditions are challenges. Once we get into those conditions, every situation is a little bit different, but there are management practices. Pen density, bedding would probably be the two biggest ones.
Visit iowabeefcenter.org for more information about management practices.
The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine researchers earned a divisional patent for a new non-antibiotic liver abscess treatment for cattle. It's been 3 decades in the making, but the patent comes at a decisive time in the cattle industry. Liver abscesses are a huge cost to the industry, $56 million to be exact, according to a recent study by West Texas A&M University. The development could also provide producers with an alternative to antibiotic treatment for beef cattle liver infections. Alternative methods to treating animals with antibiotics is valuable to ranchers and consumers alike because there's an amplified focus placed on antibiotic stewardship. That's according to Mike Apley, professor of clinical sciences at Kansas State University. Last year, the World Health Organization took a big step to address antibiotic resistance. The organization called for an overall reduction in the use of medically important antibiotics in food-producing animals. Although U.S. policy currently does not align with World Health Organization guidelines, it could be a precursor of what's to come for antibiotic use. USDA Foreign Agricultural Service awarded Texas A&M AgriLife Research and Colorado State University $750,000 to develop a beef export project. Researchers from A&M and CSU will team up to develop industry best practices to help U.S. beef producers and other industry partners meet requirements to gain access to Chinese markets. Full access to these markets could potentially add billions to beef industry revenue. But Russell Cross at Texas A&M AgriLife says the U.S. first needs to better understand China's requirements, such as limits on chemical residue. After the study's research phases, ranchers will have access to educational materials and programs to help them meet requirements for exporting to China. You can find more stories like this at angusbeefbulletin.com.
When we return, we head to Scott City, Kansas, where Ty Rumford has been managing the same feed yard for 23 years.
Then make sure you're an eligible voting member of the American Angus Association. Visit angus.org to continue watching this episode of the Angus Report.